I'd like to talk to you today about evolution and what I call the fairy tale of evolution. We're brainwashed today in our society to such an extent that if someone dares speak against the fairy tale of evolution, they're marked off as some kind of an idiot. But evolution has a lot of flaws in it. Evolution has the biggest flaw is that the truth now is reproving evolution. Did you know that there's only enough dust on the moon to account for 6,000 years of time? When they first landed on the lunar landers, the big lunar landers landed on the moon, during the Apollo missions, there's big round pads on each leg of each lunar lander. Do you know why they had them big round pads? Because they expected to settle into billions of years of dust, according to evolution. But when they settled into the dust, there was only enough dust to account for 10,000 years of time. Only a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch of dust. Did you know that the sun is burning up at 5 feet per minute? Energy consumes matter. And the sun is burning up at 5 feet per minute. If you just reverse that 1 million years ago, nothing could have lived on Earth. It would have melted everything on Earth. Scientists make the statement, and listen to the way they make the statement about the moon. This is an exact quote from a scientist. The moon is exactly 400 times smaller in diameter, not in volume, but in diameter. You could probably fit 1 million moons in the sun, but in diameter it's exactly 400 times smaller in diameter than the sun. And then they say, and by strange geometric coincidence, it's also 400 times closer to the Earth than it is to the sun, which makes it exactly the same size as the sun from Earth. Did you know that the moon and the sun are exactly the same size from Earth? Exactly. And they call that a strange geometric coincidence. Do you know there's no missing link of any species where there's a half this species and it became this species next? You know, there's a lot of lies in evolution, and you need to go back to Genesis and start reading in Genesis where God changed the serpent race in Genesis 3. That's what we're digging up right now is the dinosaurs. The serpent race was a reptile race. It was above all the cattle of the field. When they caused Adam and Eve to sin, God cursed them and made them crawl upon their bellies. Now, if you do a search in Genesis chapter 6, or Genesis chapter 3, about the serpent was above all the cattle of the field, and when he sinned and caused Adam and Eve to sin, God said, because you've done this, cursed art thou above all the cattle of the field, upon thy belly shall you crawl. And I heard a statement from a scientist where I got a thing for my kids years ago, a little plastic tube with some dinosaurs in it. And on the statement, they said the dinosaurs, the reptiles, the exact statement was the reptiles of the past are much like the reptiles of today, except the reptiles of the past had their weight high and suspended above the earth. Now in Genesis chapter 3, the serpent was more subtle than any of the cattle of the field, and the serpent was above all the cattle of the field. And when God cursed it, he said, because you've done this, cursed art thou above all the cattle of the field, upon thy belly shall you crawl. And the entire reptile race was humbled in the garden. Someone might say, well, where's dinosaurs at in the Bible? Look up Job chapter 40. It's the largest dinosaur God ever made. His name is Behemoth. His tail is as large as a cedar. He's the chiefest of the ways of God, which means he's the largest creature God made on earth. He thinks he can drink up a river in one gulp. And in the next chapter, Job 41, is Leviathan, the most fierce dinosaur God ever made. He laughs at someone shaking a spear at him. God says, behold Leviathan, who I made with thee. He's talking to Job. Leviathan was made with mankind, not billions of years before mankind, but with mankind. It says that his scales are so tightly as a reptile. His scales are so tightly knit together that no spear can pierce through them. And then God uses Leviathan as an example to Job. He says, if you fear him, should you not all the more fear me? The most fierce dinosaur God ever made. Now, if you look up, one day I was reading in Isaiah 27:1, and it blew my mind. I hear a lot of creationists out there teaching on teaching creation, and they do a good job in many ways, but they blow it when they get to the dinosaurs. Some of them are just off the wall saying, well, they were on the ark. Some of them are off the wall saying that, teaching that they're still around and the Loch Ness Monster's proof of it. But if you read Job 40, if you'd read Isaiah 27:1, it blew my mind when I read Isaiah 27:1 one day. It says, in that day shall the Lord with his great and mighty sword punish Leviathan the piercing serpent, even Leviathan the crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. Leviathan's called a piercing serpent, a crooked serpent, and a dragon. And why would God threaten to punish this animal in Isaiah 27:1? Has he ever punished any animal? Yeah, the serpent. Now we know, I knew what Job 41 and Job 40 said about Behemoth, the largest dinosaur God made, and Leviathan, the most fierce dinosaur God made. I knew that's what, I knew what God said about those. But I didn't know that Leviathan was of the serpent race until I read Isaiah 27:1, and that's when I just went into a deep search. I started realizing in Revelations 20, Michael's going to lay hold on that old devil, that old serpent, the dragon and the devil. He calls him a serpent, dragon, and devil. Genesis chapter 3, now the serpent was above all the cattle of the field, and more subtle than any of the cattle. He had more abilities, more crafty, more cunning than any of the cattle, but he was above. And here's what happened, man. When he sinned against God and sinned against Adam and Eve, and God lured them into sinning, God spoke a curse on him and said, because you've done this, cursed art thou above all the cattle of the field. The only animal that was ever changed genetically, only creature that God ever changed genetically, was a serpent, where he gave them a separate form, a different form than the original form they were given. Before, they were above all the cattle, and when they sinned, God caused them to crawl upon their bellies. Now we're digging up the original dinosaurs that God made, but when they went to lay eggs, they laid a humble breed. If you take an alligator right now and you were to raise it up and give it volume, turn its head this way and give it volume, it would look just like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And when they went to lay their eggs, they laid a humble breed. You want to know where the dinosaurs went? They're still here inhabiting the earth. God cursed them and made them all crawl upon their bellies. It wasn't just a snake, the serpent race. If you read Isaiah 27:1, you'll see that Leviathan, which was a fire-breathing dragon, the most fierce dinosaur God ever made. He laughs at someone shaking a spear at him. God warns Job, is there anyone that could dare raise battle against him? No. Men's hearts fail even at the look of him. He was the most fierce dinosaur God ever made. And God humbled him in the garden. I don't believe that the original ones God made, that they just fell to the ground and shriveled up. I believe we're digging up those original ones. But their seed still inhabits the earth as a humble breed. The entire reptile race was humbled in the garden in Genesis chapter 3.